Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to have a look at the annual Game of the Year list. Now this list is compiled of the most memorable games I've played on the Nintendo Switch this year. A lot of these will have written reviews or reviews written by myself, and I will leave a link down below on where to find them if you wanted to look at them more thoroughly. As always, if you like what you see, subscribe because it's free, and in no particular order, here we go. The problem with making lists like this is that you tend to remember the games that came out maybe after June or what would have been E3 time, give or take, and you forget about some incredible games that came out earlier in the year, and Octopath Traveler 2 is one of them. This one is very special because it combines a number of features that really make a game stand out. It has incredible visuals, the 2D HD or HD 2D, can't remember. Basically the art style in the game is spectacular, it's very catchy, and it goes hand in hand with the incredible soundtrack and great voice acting. You can pick who to start your adventure with, and each of the 8 characters have a specific job and skill, and they all have their own backstory, which I found really interesting. They can be equipped with a secondary job, kind of like they do in the Final Fantasy series, and one of the most notable aspects of the game was the battle mechanics, where you can bank battle points or BP, and these will allow you to strike a certain amount of times in one turn. So for example, if you bank 4 battle points, you can strike 4 times in one turn. It kind of reminded me a bit of Bravely Default in that sense. If you're looking for a glorious, beautifully narrated JRPG that's kind of fallen a bit under the radar, this one is definitely a recommendation, and I will leave a link to my review from Rapid Reviews down below. BLASPHEMOUS 2 was an incredible experience that, I think when you have a really good first game, it's really hard to top it up or up the ante, as they say, within a sequel, and you always think, what will they do next? And this one, the Game Kitchen have done an incredible job by adding a bit more lore into the world of Custodia, and also the fact that there's different weapons, and each weapon comes with a different playstyle. One thing I did like was the fact that you could start with a weapon of your choice, but you would get the other 2 weapons later on in the game. And again, not only did these affect your playstyle in terms of fighting and surviving, they also impacted how the game would be played in terms of puzzle solving and traversing the map, which is a fundamental in Metroidvanias. So they nailed that. I really enjoyed my experience. I have a full review of this on Rapid Reviews, and I'm really looking forward to the physical collector's edition that they announced for this version. Remnant from the Ashes is such a good game. I can't begin to describe how enjoyable it became. Now, from the surface, I'm sure you've heard it before, it's Dark Souls with guns, which can be an accurate description of sorts, but there's more than meets the eye with this game. For starters, the game is completely randomly generated. That means that when you play by yourself, the world will open up in a certain way. You get to visit the same worlds as everyone else, so there is that parity. However, the way the world is generated is very different, and there's that sense of discovery when you play with other people that is just so meticulous, and it's just the sense of adventure it just creates. I played this with Glenn and Mark from Switcher quite a bit, and it was just great to see how Mark, for example, fought a specific boss on the same world that I was in, except my boss was completely different, or the maps on those worlds are just completely different. It just creates a sort of roguelike, randomly generated experience every time, which is a very good thing to add to a game of this type because it just keeps the whole experience fresh. Like the fact that, you know, you may have played the game for hundreds of hours, but the second you go into someone else's lobby, the experience is completely different. Like you will fight bosses that you've never seen before. You'll get loot that you never seen before. Like the one memorable thing was when we were in like sort of this desert world, and Mark did this puzzle in front of us, in front of this temple, and we discovered an armor that I've never encountered before. It's just little tidbits like that. If you like games like Resident Evil 4 or 5 for that matter, I would say it's more akin to that, with some randomly generated levels. And yes, it does have some Dark Souls mechanics in the sense where you carry your own health that you can use, your Estus flask of sorts that you can use to heal yourself or revive others. Definitely recommend this one. Please go and check out my review of this game in the link below. Advance Wars 1 and 2 is one of those games where I think really hits that nostalgia spot, if that's even a term. But I think you have to be of a certain age to be excited about the game's announcement and release. I have fond memories of going on school trips and playing the original Advance Wars on the Game Boy Advance with my mates on the coach, and each one taking turns on the battlefield and trying to take each other. If you like games like Fire Emblem, you need to try this. It plays a bit differently because you have different units, but in essence is pretty much the same thing. And what's special about this remake is the fact that it is so faithful to the original and yet adds its own updated flair to it, especially when it comes to the soundtrack. You still have the bombastic tunes that you loved from the Game Boy Advance era, but for example, when you unleash your CO superpower, which is basically kind of an ultimate move specific to each CO that allows them to do some incredible stuff in order to turn the tide of the battle. And the new remix song of each CO is just spectacular. They're really catchy and it really elevates the experience of taking out the enemy. To have some of the best strategy turn-based games in one place is no short of a great thing, and if you like these type of games, you need to try this out. What can I say about Tears of the Kingdom that hasn't been said so far? I love Tears of the Kingdom so much that I've done all of the main quest things. All I have to do now is go and fight Ganon, and I left the game there because I don't want it to end. I was going on this run where I would find every single shrine to make sure I've done everything before the final showdown. Yeah, and I kind of left it there. And it's not because it's a bad game, I just didn't want it to end, really. In terms of, it's such a good game. Like, I know some people may be gutted that it didn't win, you know, Jeff Keighley's show Game of the Year and all that malarkey, but that doesn't dilute how good of a game this is, especially off the back of Breath of the Wild, to see how much has been implemented and what they've added to this game. It just shows the brilliance and the magic that Nintendo are able to come up with to make their games absolute classics. The ability to build things out of items in the world, it just changed the way the game plays massively compared to Breath of the Wild. The amount of sick stuff you can do and the amount of videos on YouTube of people creating some crazy artifacts and sort of like Gundams and weapons and torture weapons. It's just one of those things where I remember when Mario Maker came out, and it's one of those things where like a gaming company goes, here's a toolbox, go nuts, and you don't know what to expect, and the creativity of the community is just on another level, and it really impacts how the game is played, in the sense where the solution differs from person to person. And it just goes to show when you create a game that allows the player to be creative, it really impacts on the enjoyment of the game. So it's a bit like, I would say, like playing something like maybe like Minecraft, where you have to create stuff and you use your imagination. I'll put that in Breath of the Wild. And the fact that you had the sky region, it's just another layer of exploration. And the first time you encounter the subterranean world, oh my god, I spent so much time down there, and it just that sense of discovery and trying to look for every single, I can't remember what they're called, there's like these trees that illuminate the area. It's just incredible. It's such a really good game. Like, if you're watching this and you still haven't picked it up, what are you doing here? No, seriously, finish watching the video, but you know what I mean. I reviewed my time at SANDROCK on the Nintendo Switch for Alex. Shout out Alex from Switch Corner, but I did it for XP Corner. The review link, I'll put it down somewhere, I can't remember off the top of my head, but I'm rattling a bit. My point is, I do like farming sims, but I do like the ones that emphasize more in exploration and combat than the, you know, just the run-of-the-mill, oh, let's do this, let's plant these things, etc, etc. And my time on SANDROCK has that in spades. I really enjoyed it. The game at the time of writing the review, which is a few months back from this video, the game came out in a very hit and miss state. There was a lot of pop-ups and had maybe a couple of crashes, but it doesn't detract for what is a very special game. The story, I wasn't that drawn in by the story, but I did enjoy the fact that each villager in this town of SANDROCK is pretty fleshed out in their own way, and I really did enjoy the fact that you had to create commissioned work in order to make money and get your rank up for your workshop. It's a decent experience overall, and if you like this kind of games, go check it out. I was so excited when Borderlands 3 came out on the Nintendo Switch because I absolutely love that game, and the fact that this one has all the DLC, so it has the 4th skill tree added to each character, plus other download content such as, you know, different storylines and so forth. I mean, you can't go wrong with a Borderlands game. Like, I've sunk so many hours into Borderlands 2, I've kind of lost count, and it's very enjoyable. I really enjoyed this experience on the Nintendo Switch, and I'm surprised it ran the way it did. I haven't played for a while, and I know that at the time of recording this, I've read about certain bugs that if you replicate it in a certain way, you can lose all of your accumulated gear. So that's kind of put me off playing for a bit. Hopefully it is patched up, and feel free to do your own research. Totally recommend this game. The only thing, and I've written a review as well, by the way, before I forget, on my channel, leave a link, blah, 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 blah. The only thing that really pisses me off about this version is that it's only 2-player online. You can't play 4-player, and I'm sure you've heard this before from other channels. It's just such a missed opportunity. Like, again, I would play with the guys from Switch Up on Friday nights. We were doing Borderlands 1 at one point, which is the weakest of the bunch, I would say, but still a good game. And I think we were going to play 2 at one point. We were so excited for 3, and then we realized when the game came out that it was only 2-player. Yeah, that kind of sucked. That kind of like, it kind of deflated the whole excitement that we had. Needless to say, it's a very good game, and if you like the Borderlands series, do go and check it out. The best way to describe Days of Doom would be it's Death Road to Canada mixed with a bit of Darkest Dungeon. So you have your main base, you have to select the characters you're going to use in your party for your expedition, and yeah, just go out on the adventure. It's really cool because you have your map as well, and you have your fuel for your car, so you're quite limited on where to go, so you have to be very strategic and fuel efficient, which adds to the challenge of the game. There'll be times when you want to explore to gather as much materials as you can to bring it back to your base to build more stuff, but then you only have enough fuel for either that trip to go into a specific place or to carry on forward to the next map. So you have to be very careful how you plan the traversal in the game. The combat was very enjoyable. Each character has its own strengths and weaknesses, and the trick is to synergize your group to work together to bounce off each other, as well as to use the environment and the props within set battlefield in order to win. So for example, you might have barrels of oil, so if you have an item that is flammable or the pyromancer in your team, you can lure the zombies onto the oil spills and just engulf them all. I found this game to be very addictive. It's one of the better roguelites I've played in a while, and I have a review of this on my channel and also on xbcorner.net. Please go and check it out. Do you remember when I said earlier in the video that there are games that just come out at the very beginning of the year and they kind of fall behind the couch and people forget they even existed? Fire Emblem Engage is one of them. So when you hear the words Fire Emblem, you know of the great franchise of turn-based RPGs, and the most memorable ones on the Switch would be Three Houses, for example. So this one, not many people know about it. It came out at the very beginning of this year, or 2023 to be precise, and it adds a very special mechanic. It has all the good stuff that is expected with a Fire Emblem game, but here you have these rings which have the souls or the spirits, whatever you want to call it, of the heroes of the Fire Emblem franchise, and equipping them and activating them during battle will allow them to partially take over your character and give them extra attacks or boons. And yeah, it's a really good mechanic for a game that has basically done all things within its franchise in order to keep it invigorated. There's only so many Three Houses sort of esque games you can release, and for the most part it's a very enjoyable game. If you like games where you have to collect a lot of stuff, this is probably one of them. And I forget at this moment in time where I reviewed this for. I think it was for Rapid Reviews at the beginning of the year. Totally recommend it. Have a look for it. Hopefully you get it at a really good discount as well. So yeah, go check it out if you like Fire Emblem games. Lastly, we have TUNIC, which I picked up physically, and I absolutely love this game. It's one of those games where the narrative does exist but is extremely obscure. Like, all the text in the game is written in TUNIC, which is the game's own language, which you have to decipher. If you have the, for example, if you have the physical edition like I do, which, I'm not being funny, you can look for the actual TUNIC alphabet or deciphering means online. But yeah, like there'll be stuff written in that language within the game, and it's absolute gibberish, but slowly you start breaking the language down and you can start reading everything, and you read about the lore, and the world just opens up if you put the time vested in the game. And that's just one facet of the game that has nothing to do with the game itself. It's really weird to describe. Gameplay, it's really enjoyable. It's very tough. Very, very tough. But tough in a satisfying way. Like, the enemies will take no prisoners, and you have to keep your wits about you, especially within boss fights. But it does give you that dopamine hit that is really much needed when you've tried something several times and failed, but then there's one time you actually overcome it. It's very rewarding, and the gameplay is very much like a top-down ZELDA in a way. Tougher one at that. And I don't know, there's something about the visuals and the presentation. I can't put my finger in it, but there's something very sort of nostalgic about it. You know, like there's you don't remember games as such, you remember emotions felt through gaming, and it just gives you that sense of discovery that I used to get anyways when I was young and I used to play games like Link to the Past. You know, I totally recommend this one. And like I said, like the more time you invest into it and trying to learn about the game, you know, the developers knew what they were doing, and they've left little breadcrumbs within the game, and the sense of discovery really adds to the overall gameplay, and this is why it's so special. I'm rambling on, but I think you get the point. Now, last year I did kind of like the Turd Award, which was the game I was most disappointed about that year, and I believe it was Pokemon Scarlet and Violet that won that award last year. I'm not going to do the same this year, but I do want to point out one thing, and that is with PIKMIN 4. I really enjoyed the game. I was really happy that it came out, and I'm really happy to see that it adds a lot of really cool mechanics, like for example having the dog, the new ice Pikmin that can freeze the water. I played the game and I finished it, I completed it, really enjoyed it. My only bone to pick and it's going to seem minuscule is the fact that once you've cleared out a map of its enemies, they don't regenerate. And it sounds minuscule, but that really broke the game for me. Like, yeah, that was a complete deal breaker, because one of the things I love about the Pikmin franchise is, even in the third one, the fact that you go back to maps and you can, if you've got the time and you're not restricted, you can just go and farm berries for your, you know, for your perfume things that boost your Pikmin up and stuff. But you can also scavenge and battle enemies, a bit like how ants do it. And there's something quite cathartic of that game loop. And unfortunately, for all intents and purposes, and how good Pikmin 4 is, it doesn't have that, and that was the most disappointing thing about the game. So that's the list. So I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know if you resonate with the list I've compiled here, or if you disagree. By all means, please let me know. I hope you have an incredible new year, and again, if you like, please subscribe, share this video. If you want to support us, please use our affiliate links like the one we use with PlayAsia, where you can get all the best games, mostly Asian versions with English, and it'll support us massively. And if you're looking for the cool looking GameCube controller, the Nixie Wizard, please use our affiliate link for that in the description below. Use coupon code GRINNY for 10% off. I've got a few more things lined up, and I wish you all a happy new year. Peace.